The following is a presentation of the Matt Talk Podcast Network.
And welcome, wrestling fans, to the ICE Hour. This podcast is aimed at promoting the world of Division III college wrestling and is named for the late Hall of Fame coach Dave Eisenhower. Here we'll talk about topics and news that's relevant to those who compete for the love of the sport in Division III. The ICE Hour is sponsored by My House Sports Gear. Check out their line of wrestling gear and apparel at myhousesportsgear.com. Subscribe using your favorite podcasting app by going to matttalkonline.com/ice.
It's the ICE Hour, doing a little Division III action here at the Augie Adidas Open with Eric Van Kley, head coach of the Central Dutch. A good Dutch name, good Dutch team. Big win this past week, and now you're right here at the Augsburg Open. And let's talk about, you've been in this position a number of years now. Are things finally coming together for your program?
Yeah, one of the things we talk about over and over again about our program is just steady progress each and every year. There's no quantum leap, there's no big jump. I mean, it's steady progress, and sometimes that's hard to see it in the Iowa Conference. You got really good Division III wrestling there, and it's a grind week in, week out. But yeah, I mean, we had a nice win with Co the other night, and we got a ton of respect for their program and everything that they do. And it was a hard-fought win, but a day and a half later, you're back on the mats, and you got things that you got to work on. So it's not something that we get all wild and crazy about, but it was a fun night, middle of November, and the season goes on.
That's first time since 2000 you guys had knocked them off, and when you build a program, I often say it's the third recruiting class. Rob Cole wasn't successful at Cornell till his 10th, 11th year. This is kind of around that same realm for you. Where are you starting to see the progress in your coaching abilities and your ability to recruit the right type of kids from year one to what you're bringing into the program now?
Well, a big thing for us is we're a decade into this, and when I say we, I mean it's all of our alumni, it's assistant coaches, it's a we thing, it's not a me thing. And, the biggest thing that we're seeing this year is we just have better overall depth in the room. So when you get that better depth, there's better competition in the room on a daily basis, and you're not one injury away from putting a guy out there that's not quite ready. You're not one injury away from, your lineup dramatically changing. So, we think it's really good that we got juniors and seniors that they need to be ready or they're going to lose a starting spot to a freshman. That's the biggest thing that we're seeing this year that maybe we didn't have 2-3 years ago is that solid depth and competition, at a lot of weights. And we got weights that we're not there yet. We've got to keep getting better. But it's just fun to see the continued growth and progress of the program in year 10.
How many guys did you bring up to this tournament this weekend?
We got 23 up here this weekend.
And how many are you carrying on the roster?
We're about 36, 38 right now.
So the admin's got to love that when it comes to the people look at Division III wrestling when they're adding programs. It's not just an opportunity to wrestle. It's also, these are tuition-driven schools too, and bringing in 36 kids and having success, that's got to make your administrators happy.
Right, absolutely. I mean, it is, and speaking from an AD perspective, I don't know that any sport right now should be more appealing to tuition-driven private schools than wrestling. You're recruiting tremendously hard-working young men from more often than not blue-collar families that come with great attitudes. It's a low-expense sport that you can have a solid roster of 30 to 40, and I just give all the credit in the world to the NWCA and other groups like that are being very proactive and seeing this huge spike in the growth of our programs, and it's so healthy for college wrestling right now.
From that administrator standpoint, which is something you've kind of inherited in your time there, what has changed in terms of how you coach your team based on now having to deal with so many other sports in terms of an administrative capacity?
Well, one of the things that I tell everybody selfishly, I like stealing good ideas from some of our other programs at Central. So, I'm stealing programs from our basketball program. I'm stealing ideas from football programs. So I think sometimes you can get stuck in a little bit of a cocoon when you're a coach in a sport that all your friends, all your colleagues, everybody that you know are in your sport and everybody's doing things the same way. I try to step outside of that bubble once in a while and get good ideas from other programs, and more often than not, you can learn things from it. But, the other thing that everything's predicated on is you got to have a staff and support people around you to help it. I think when you look at the successful college programs, and it doesn't matter, D3, D1, everywhere in between, any place a program's successful, you got administrative support, but you also have a tremendous staff to be able to help it. It's not just a head coach, it's great assistants around them.
When you look at the landscape of the Iowa Conference, talking about where you guys are at, and We're seeing a new program at Nebraska Wesleyan and Brandon Bradley there, Jeff Brees in his third year at Buena Vista. We've seen the job that you've done at Central. It's not just Wartburg running away with it. Of course, they're still kind of running away with it in some respects, but the competition between 2 and 10 isn't as dramatic as it used to be. What's it like to have those new programs in the conference, new coaches, fresh blood, that type of stuff?
I think it's awesome. We talk about this on the recruiting trail. We talk about this internally in our program, that we think the Iowa Conference and the healthiness of all those programs is the best thing in the world. I think you take what Brandon's going to do at Nebraska Wesleyan, what Jeff is working on at BV. I think that is so healthy for everybody, because when everybody's improving and the conference competition keeps getting better, I just think it's good for our conference and it's good for wrestling overall. And I had a conversation with Coach Miller, retired coach from Wartburg a couple years ago, and he made the comment. He said, "I think the competition in the Iowa Conference now is as good as it has ever been. As far as depth, you still got Wartburg on the top end, but just top to bottom, that depth, we really enjoy it and embrace it. And I think it's healthy for our conference and the rest of D3 wrestling."
Division III championships are going back to La Crosse, Wisconsin this year. Great facility, great site. What are you looking forward to, not just from your team's perspective, but from a general wrestling perspective? La Crosse is a great town that really lends itself to wrestling.
It is. In some cases, you could say, that area in Wisconsin, Minnesota, Iowa, it's kind of the heart of wrestling in Division III. You got a ton of great schools, and, Coach Malachek and his staff do an awesome job there. I mean, it's going to be a really fun tournament. I even think you take step back from the Iowa Conference and you look at D3 overall, I think there's going to be so much more parity. You look at some of the schools out east, and you take a Baldwin Wallace and Del Valley and Messiah. I mean, there's just more and more programs that you can see from an outside in just keep getting better every year, and I think it's so healthy for our division, and it's great for wrestling overall. So it's going to be a fun one, La Crosse, and it's going to be a shootout again.
I can't interview a D3 coach without asking the one question about the elephant in the room. Your thoughts on realignment?
We've got to work through it. The biggest thing people got to do is we got to separate emotions from it, and we've got to get the right people at the table and really look at it objectively. And I don't think we're a mile off. I think we're smaller parts off, and when we can look at it objectively over time, I think we're going to make good decisions. I also think all of the new programs that are being added that are kind of fueling all this is a real positive. I think we need to make sure that we take a step back and look at it not as, hey, how is regional realignment going to affect my program, but in a different light saying, hey, Division III had 7 new programs added this year. That's awesome, and these are just growing pains that we need to work through.
It's back over 100 programs. And another thing, as we're seeing, part of the new programs, I know Ferrum College is looking to put in a bid to host the Division III championships in Roanoke, a great facility there. We're starting to see the Division III championships become more of a draw. People want them there. Right. It was in Hershey a couple years ago. It's not just going to be bouncing between Cedar Rapids and La Crosse. What do you think about bringing them out east and, a school like Ferrum going, hey, let's bring this to Virginia?
I think it's absolutely wonderful, and I can speak for a lot of programs in the Midwest. When it was out in Hershey, our kids thought it was cool. Our alumni thought it was neat. The family, just to be able to see a different part of the country and see, different part of the experience. I think that's part of the college atmosphere. I think, it's a little harder to sell nationals when you're getting in a bus and driving 2 hours to a place you've been 10 different times. But I think going out east and being able to try to somewhat do that periodically, whether that's every other year, every third year, I think is really, really healthy. And I think a national tournament in Virginia would be wonderful for Division III.
You had a chance to start a program at the NAIA level at Great Falls, and now you've been a Division III coach for a number of years. What's the best thing for you about coaching in Division III?
What I love about it is I think we get student athletes that have really good balance. I don't know the exact number, but I kind of smiled after last year's Division III Nationals, and I want to say 14 or 15 of the national finalists were also Scholar All-Americans. I think you're getting outstanding young people that are doing great in the classroom. They're working tremendously hard wrestling-wise, and they're just fun to be around. And I think that balance makes our level of wrestling a lot of fun and great kids to coach.
Top things to look for from Central this year?
Hopefully steady improvement. We, like I said, nice win a night and a half ago. I just looked at the film, and we got a lot we got to work on. So steady improvement moving forward, and hopefully a better team in March than we are now.
Coming to the end of the day here at the Augie Adidas Open in Minneapolis at Augsburg College. Joined by Tim Fader, head coach at Wisconsin Eau Claire. Your second year in Eau Claire, back in the head coaching game again. And one thing that we've noticed already from your teams is you've got numbers, you're winning dual meets. What's it like to be leading the charge again?
It's great. It's great. It's a great school. I got some really great kids. Really, really excited about the staff that we put together, with 2 former wrestlers in Cedric Gibson and Elroy Perkin and Nathaniel Banky joining us, and then Jose Quintana from USA Wrestling that just joined our admissions program. So just got a lot of good things happening.
When it comes to the University of Wisconsin system, I think few coaches have the experience that you do now at the number of schools that you've coached at and the experience and with basically just how the world of Division III works. What was it about Eau Claire that really kind of enticed you to say, you know what, this is a place I want to coach at?
I had never really been in the community or outside of the McPhee Center, and when I went up there for an interview, I was impressed with everything I saw. I was surprised at everything that I saw, and the administration there gave me a chance, and then they rewarded, I think, a growing program last spring, and they've continued to support the program, and I think it's going to be a successful place. It's successful. It's already a great school, but I think it's going to have a successful wrestling program.
When you came in, there had been a series of 1-2-year coaches, not a whole lot of stability. Numbers were low. Just looking around, you've got more student managers, it seems, now than you did wrestlers when you first got there. What has allowed you to just recruit and get so many bodies? You brought 22 people here, and that's 3 times the number of wrestlers that were on the team when you took the job.
Well, it's a lot of work. It really is. It's a lot of work, and it's a group effort to try to get good student athletes at our school. It'll continue to be a lot of work, but wrestling is one of those sports that we have a fan base in a lot of different areas in the country, and Wisconsin's one of them. People in all those small towns up in northwest Wisconsin, there's some great wrestling programs. There's some good wrestlers. Well, coming west here to the Twin Cities, there's a lot of great wrestlers here, and you mentioned our managers. They're wrestling fans. They are. They got 4 or 5 years of being in a high school wrestling program, and they want to do the same thing when they're at the college level. And so, we're trying to attract people that are excited, passionate about wrestling, and continue to build.
One misconception that may be existing, maybe you can disprove this, is when you looked at a school like Eau Claire that had gone through a series of 1-2-year coaches, low numbers, you wonder what's the administration's thought process on how valuable this team is to the university and the athletics program entirely. What did you get from the administration to say, they do care? It's just they need the right driver of this bus.
Yeah, that was my number one goal, is to prove to our administration that it is valuable to have the sport of wrestling at UW-Eau Claire. 2.5 years ago, it was on the block. They were having discussions about eliminating it. We worked hard on numbers. We worked hard on. We had a fantastic team GPA last year. We had 4 Scholar All-Americans, which was a school record. We got guys that are really involved in the community. We got faculty members that are stopping into practice and asking questions. We run a little Wrestling 101 class where, I bring my SID down, or we bring the Dean of Students over or somebody and kind of teach them about how to score, what our wrestlers are doing, how hard they're working. And just, I think, that's going to continue to be the goal. And we've had I think we've elevated it. They made my position a full-time wrestling coach position after having, I believe, 4 coaches in 4 years. Nathaniel Benke had a different coach every single year of his college career. And that's just not a recipe for success. They had no resources for wrestling. They had, just a lot of turnover and I think a little bit of stability and a little bit of passion. I think people are interested in what's going on.
The quality of wrestling, we've mentioned it, the quality of wrestling in Division III in Iowa is fantastic. The quality of wrestling in Division III in Minnesota is fantastic. The quality of wrestling in Wisconsin in Division III is fantastic. What do you attribute to that quality when it comes to Division III wrestling, not just coming from the high school wrestlers in those states? You've got kids from Minnesota coming over to Wisconsin and down to Iowa and vice versa. Why does it seem like the athletes care about wrestling Division III out here?
It's a great question. I think in the Midwest, I think it's kind of an ingrained work ethic. I think we have tremendous high school and younger opportunities to learn from great coaches. We have great high school coaches in Minnesota and Wisconsin and Iowa and Illinois, and they're when I was wrestling, there might have been a club within an hour away, and now you got great clubs and schools that are everywhere, and you just a tremendous opportunity to learn the skills involved in wrestling at a younger age. And I think it just has kind of trickled up, and the colleges and the universities in the Midwest are getting great kids with a passion for wrestling and a good, strong work ethic, and I think that's key.
You're in a unique situation where you're going to be competing against your old team and kids you recruited at Whitewater, but it's not a situation you're unfamiliar with because when you left lacrosse, you kind of had to do the same thing. What, does it kind of, how does that feel? I mean, it's got to be a little bittersweet sometimes when you're going to have a guy competing against a kid you recruited, and now you got to coach against him.
It is. I mean, it's an emotional sport. It's an emotional career that I got myself involved in. But I have great relationships with my current athletes and my former athletes, and I really strive to make them better people, make my wrestling program better, and I realize, through this journey, I realize, where we're at, and sometimes you just can't rush that process. You can't. We just talked about this the other day. You can't be experienced without experience.
With the situation that happened at Whitewater where you ended up ultimately losing your job and then an assistant for a year, and then the opportunity arose with a head coaching position, do you feel like Eau Claire took a chance on you, even though you're still fighting to kind of clear the situation, clear your name a little bit? Or, how has this whole situation affected you as a coach? And, how do you feel like you've come out of this so far?
Well, I don't think it cleared my name at all. There was no name to be cleared. UW-Eau Claire, the administration, everybody that I work with, they went into my background as long as I've been coaching, and they said that they could not find one single negative about my coaching career or my involvement with student athletes, and that's from my current bosses, and that was valuable for me to hear. And they came to me and said, hey, we'd like you to be our wrestling coach, and we know what kind of person you are. And to say that this hasn't been a difficult last couple of years would be an understatement, though.
Yeah, we were briefly talking earlier. There's not resentment towards the wrestlers or the current coaching staff or anything. Ned Shuck's done a great job in trying to really keep going what you had built there. I mean, it's still got to be an uncomfortable situation for you and the wrestlers that probably still have some loyalty to you as well. I don't know if that's the case. I know that one of the things that's happened from it is I think. There's situations that are happening in college campuses, with sexual assault, and you're seeing these things with football programs and Baylor and, all the way back to Penn State. And, I'm also very interested in that now. I think that there's some policies and rules out there that are not, they're not what people think they are. They're not what they think they are. And, hopefully my lawsuit will shine some light on that and make some social change. I really hope that it does. It needs to. So, as far as I got a good relationship with the Whitewater Wrestling Program. I got a good relationship with the coaches in the state of Wisconsin, and I'm just really excited about where I'm at and where Eau Claire Wrestling is, at and where we're going to go. You spent a lot of time in lacrosse. They're the host for the Division III championships this year. How excited are you to go back to the Lacrosse Center for Division III championships? You got to get guys there first, but do you feel like you've got a squad that can bring some guys to lacrosse and fight for those All-American honors there in the Lacrosse Center?
Well, I know we got several months ahead of us where we can make kids better. I really do. It's middle of November. This is it's fun to see building blocks here, but we got some time here to work with our guys. And they keep putting forth the effort, and they want to qualify for that NCAA tournament. We're going to do everything we can to put them in that position, and ultimately that would be fun. It'd be great to take a number of guys to the tournament in lacrosse. It's kind of it's the closest school to us that has a wrestling program at Eau Claire. I got a lot of great friends and great memories, and it is the best place to have the national tournament, I think, and we hope to not just be there watching. We want to be there wrestling at that tournament.
Well, once we're done, I'll get you a Bloody Mary at Dell's Bar.
I've been there.
Now talking with Luther head coach Dave Mitchell as we wrap up action in a pretty quick day here at Augsburg at the Augie Adidas Open. And Coach Mitchell, this tournament, you've been coming for the vast number of years. these preseason tournaments, they're varying degrees of bracketing and styles, and this one's got 3 divisions for kids. What did you find beneficial for a tournament like this point in the season for your guys?
First off, congratulations to Augsburg for running a nice tournament, getting it done at a decent time. They've really honed in on that the last couple of years and done a great job, so we like coming down for that reason. But, I like the fact that you're going to get a lot of matches here. Even if you lose first round, you're going to get a chance to get against some kids that you're going to, hopefully have a chance to beat. And the nice thing about this versus the Luther Open, for example, is you're not going to see a kid twice. I mean, I like wrestling guys twice, but here that's not going to happen the way the brackets are set up, and that's good too. So you're seeing different kinds of opponents. I love the Division II flavor that it has here. We like that a lot. Obviously, we love seeing Augsburg, and we love seeing lacrosse. And it's a good event. We like coming to it.
Obviously, there's that school in Waverly. Actually, this isn't the Buena Vista show, so I can say Wartburg. Where you guys have run into them. They're in the conference. Your kids know the quality competition, their legacy. When you bring them up to this gym and you see their rivals and you see 12 banners hanging on the wall, do you ever have a conversation with those guys and be like, look, guys, don't get intimidated. This is just an open. I mean, there's a lot of respect to be had in this gym.
Mm-hmm. It is impressive to see their mats and look at the banners up here. I personally enjoy seeing that. I see a lot of names on their wall that you recognize, and I've got great respect for both those programs, obviously. But we're our own program. And when I took the job 20 years ago, for a few years I was looking north and I was looking a little west, trying to see, what are they doing with their programs? What are they doing that we could wrap into ours? But ultimately, in a few years, you got to make your own program. You got to do it your own way. And I think we've found that balance of what's right for Luther. And I think Luther style wrestling is a little different than both those guys. And we've got very much a family atmosphere in our program, and we really build off of that all the way through. And so we really focus on what we have control over the best we can, knowing that national titles run through these 2 towns that you just mentioned. We know that, absolutely know that, but we're going to do it our own way.
You mentioned family, and this is something I've noticed since I've been coming to the Division III tournament in 2009. Whether it's away, it's whether the D3 championships are lacrosse, Cedar Rapids, Hershey, Pennsylvania. There's the Luther fans, and you cannot, whether you're having a good year or a bad year, they're going to be there. And what's it like to have that type of student body, that the backups and the reserve wrestlers all coming together at these type of events with the chant, as we call it?
Oh, we love it, man. We absolutely love it. And you think of Division I nationals, you think of certain fan bases that are a big part of it. And I think, I'm very proud of the fact that when people think of Division III nationals, one of the first fan bases you think of is Luther. Not only Luther, of course, but one of the fan bases. And I'm very proud of that. And our guys get geared up for it. It does give you a competitive edge, when you're wrestling with a kid where it's just his parents and grandparents are there and you've got a whole fan base there cheering you on. It can give you a competitive edge, and we definitely realize that too. So love it. Absolutely love the buy-in from our alums, love the buy-in from our student body, and our guys love it.
I think it was at the Ice Arena a couple years ago in Cedar Rapids that they were actually instituting the Luther rule. Like, no, those are reserve tickets. You cannot run around and, that's one of these things that's like, it's probably going to drive you a little nuts. Just let them do it. But, you said it's a competitive advantage, and that changes the way things are done. But as we got the Division IIIs coming back to lacrosse this year, great host, great city. What are you looking forward for your team this year, getting guys through, because it's a rough region, and ultimately having a great Division III tournament that just showcases not just your program, but the 100+ programs we have in Division III now? Yeah,
they'll do an outstanding job of hosting it at lacrosse. It's kind of the St. Louis of Division IIIs. I think it's got everything you want with the hotels right there and the eateries and the pubs that are right nearby. Is a great environment. So, and for us, we're the second closest school in the country to that arena other than UW-La Crosse. So we think of it as almost a home event. In terms of our team, we're third in the country last year, and we have high expectations. We've got a good group of kids coming back. We definitely have a different dual meet team than we had a year ago. We got some holes that we're trying to develop guys. They're doing a great job, but it's a developmental process, and it's going to take time with them. But we got studs to build around, and at the end of the year, hopefully we can have enough of those guys on the stand to make a run at a trophy.
What is your philosophy on numbers? Because as we've talked to Division III coaches and administrators who are adding the sport, and you've got your school is long entrenched in the sport of wrestling, but when administrators, they see roster numbers, they see tuition dollars, that type of thing, you also see an opportunity to build depth. What is your policy on how many wrestlers you carry, and how has that evolved over the years?
Yeah, I like numbers. There is a number that I think gets a little too big. We've had near 60 in our room, and with our staff and academic rigors at Luther and our other jobs that we have on campus as coaches, it maybe is a little too high for us to really serve them as well as we want to. So I don't know exactly what the ideal number is, but we like numbers, and my philosophy is that obviously we want the studs in the room, and you need the studs to be great, but our program is family-based, and those guys that are third or fourth or fifth string, if they're coming into the room and they're going hard every day, they're making guys around them better, and they're inspirations to the guys around them too. So we love those guys. And not only that, but I've seen over the years that those guys go on to be great alums too, not only in the time that they're there. So we like the family atmosphere. We like the numbers. We just ask that guys that are there are committed. That's all we ask, and then we're going to be committed to them, and our coaches are committed to them. So we're giving time to those guys too, just like we are to our starters. So we like it. We like the numbers.
Talked to Eric Van Kley earlier about the rise that his program has had within the Iowa Conference. Jeff Brees at Buena Vista, new blood, new program at Nebraska Wesleyan. The Iowa Conference is basically the Big Ten of Division III wrestling. What have you seen from the conference that's, the gap may be closing on Wartburg, some people believe? I don't think Eric Keller is going to agree, but he knows that they're chasing. But the conference as a whole, what makes it so strong year after year after year, even when, you're going to get a fight from guys from BV, you're going to get fights from Nebraska Wesleyan, even though they're in their first year, you're seeing that, Central has come up and knocked Co off, and Co came from the depths to make themselves a national player.
Yeah, I think it's a great commitment by the institutions, number one. Like the Big Ten, right? They made a big commitment to wrestling at the Big Ten level. I think the Iowa Conference as a conference has made a commitment to wrestling. You have to sponsor wrestling to be a member of the conference, which is why Nebraska Wesleyan offered a new program, right? So I think it started at the conference level and the institutions at those conferences, and then they fund it well. They hire quality coaches, and there are great coaches in our conference that are doing outstanding jobs across the board. And even when the ones don't have enough depth to have 10 really stud kids, they still have a kid or two that are battling their butts off. So I think it's a tribute to the institutions and the coaches at those institutions.
This show is part of the Matt Talk Podcast Network. For more wrestling podcasts, head over to MattTalkOnline.com.